Clerk, the time is 7 p.m. I'm going to call this council meeting to order. Town of Aurora acknowledges that the Anishinaabe lands on which we live and work are the traditional and treaty territories of the Chippewas of Regina Island, as well as many other nations whose presence here continues to this day. As the closest First Nation community to Aurora, we recognize the special relationship the Chippewas have with the lands and waters of this territory. They are the water protectors and environmental stewards of these lands, and as a municipality, we join them in these responsibilities. We further acknowledge that Aurora is part of the treaty lands of the Mississaugas and Chippewas recognized through Treaty Number 13, as well as the Williams Treaties of 1923. Shared understanding of the rich cultural heritage that has existed for centuries and how our collective past brought us to where we are today will help us walk together into a better future. Council, can I have a motion to approve the agenda with the additional items? Councillor Thompson, Councillor Weiss, Councillor Gallo, go ahead. Councillor Gallo, go ahead.
Just a question, Mr. Mayor, on just inquiring about, I kind of get 9.2, but 9.3, is it possible to have those items on a committee of the whole versus straight on a council agenda, unless we're not expecting anyone to speak to it? Is there a reason why we have it straight on a council agenda? I get 9.2 and it's not a big deal. Well, just an introduction of the budget, but
yeah, 9.2 we're just receiving for information.
And so is the other one, but it's just, you know, we certainly could have questions and answers. And
well, Councillor, if you want, when we get to it, we can just defer it to committee. That's fine.
I'm just curious if there's a reason. Then
Ms. Weimer Van Kessel.
Through Mr. Mayor, the reason they're together is because the forecast that's included in this report is the one that's also reflected in the budget. So the two of them link together.
Is there any, is there any urgency? Can it be deferred to committee in November?
It could be deferred. It just, the information will be a bit more stale. We try to get them on the agendas as fast as we can.
Councillor.
Sure, I wouldn't mind deferring it.
Okay, when we get to it,
sure.
I'll come to you. That's fine. I'll make a note there, Councillor, so when I get to it, I'll remind myself. Okay. Seeing none other, I'll call the vote. Four and five, or you just got them? There we go. That carries. Any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. We have two community presentations. First one, Deputy Chief Lorianne Zwicker and from Central York Fire Services regarding call to recycle community partnership with Central York Fire Service. Deputy Chief, welcome. It's good to see you as always.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to members of council, staff, and residents, thank you for this opportunity to speak on our community partnership with Call to Recycle. At Call to Recycle Canada, their mission is very clear: to protect the environment by leading the charge in battery recycling and responsible waste management. As the use of batteries continues to grow, the importance of their mission grows with it. 2025 brought exciting advancement to their program in Canada, including expanding into new provinces and territories, new partnerships with businesses and municipalities that increase the accessibility of their battery collection network, and innovation that allows them to collect and recycle batteries in safer, more efficient ways. As we look to the future, our commitment with Call to Recycle remains unwavering. We will continue to work toward achieving the mission to innovate, educate, and advocate for sustainable solutions that protect our planet for future generations. At Central York Fire Services, we believe that protecting the environment is not just a responsibility, it's a privilege. In 2025, Call to Recycle launched the annual Battery Safety Awareness Campaign. The campaign encouraged consumers to keep batteries out of the trash and regular recycling bins, and to avoid fire incidences and protect workers at waste facilities. The campaign also addressed the important subjects, including terminal protection, special care instructions for e-mobility batteries, and how to identify and manage damaged, defective, and recalled batteries. The centerpiece of the campaign was a new public service announcement that featured Fire Chief Rocco Volpe of Central York Fire Services, Fire and Life Safety Educator Jennifer Baker, and Fire Prevention Inspector Carson Dowling. This PSA has been broadcasted on national TV since July of this year. I'm so proud of this community partnership, and I thank the mayor and members of council for supporting Central York Fire Services in the development of this and all of our community partnerships. As we watch this campaign launch video, let us be reminded of our responsibilities for battery safety and the importance in shaping a more sustainable tomorrow. Recycle bins are located at each of our 5 fire stations, and we encourage residents to drop your used batteries off at one of these locations. Together, we can make a difference.
Hi, I'm Fire Chief Rocco Volpe, here with Inspector Dowling and Educator Baker, with an important message about battery safety. Today, batteries can be found everywhere, from cell phones to power tools. But did you know that they can spark and cause a fire if they overheat, touch metal objects, or are crushed in waste trucks? Unfortunately, we've seen it happen too often. So never throw them in the trash or regular recycling bins.
Batteries need to be properly recycled at designated battery drop-off locations.
The Recycle Your Batteries Canada program makes it easy with nearly 15,000 locations across the country. You can find them at leading retailers and municipal depots.
So collect, protect, and drop off your used batteries every 3 months.
Collect your used batteries in a non-metal container like a peanut butter jar.
Protect lithium, rechargeable, and alkaline batteries over 9 volts by covering the terminals with electrical tape or placing them in individual plastic bags. Then store them in a cool and dry location away from the sun.
Finally, drop off your batteries every 3 months to avoid corrosion.
Protect what matters. Be battery safe. By responsibly recycling your batteries, you're preventing fires, keeping your community safe, and supporting a healthy, circular economy. Find a drop-off location near you at recycleyourbatteries.ca.
Recycle your batteries, Canada.
Thank you, Deputy Chief. Don't go anywhere. There might be a question or a comment. And I see Chief is here as well, so just want to recognize him. Thank you, Chief, for coming. Council, can I have a motion first to receive the presentation? Councillor Kim, Councillor Gallo. Any questions for the presentation? Councillor Gardner, go ahead.
Thank you so much for coming, Chief. Good to see you as always. I thought it was a very clear, just long enough presentation. With respect to the lithium batteries, are those the batteries that you're supposed to cover and put into a paper bag, into a plastic bag while you're waiting to recycle them?
Deputy Chief.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Gardner. Any battery that has 2 poles is best recommended to be taped for security. So there could be a lithium ion battery. As long as it has 2 poles, we always recommend that you place that black tape or any type of tape over both of the poles so that there's no connection when they're being stored in the bins.
Councillor.
Thank you. Understood. I think I'm pretty aware of recycling and have been for a long time, but I didn't know that part. And I live in a multi-use building, and thank you, we do have battery recycling. I don't know if we have it in all of our multi-use buildings or our multi-story residential buildings in Aurora. That would be great because it would make it so easy. But that piece about how to store them, is that it's not on our recycling container, is it? Like, how would the public know about that?
Deputy Chief?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Gunn. The information is available on recycleyourbatteries.ca, but we also provide that information at Central York Fire Service. And if any of the residents do require a box to actually store them until they're ready to recycle, we also have those boxes available at each of our fire stations.
Councillor?
A follow-up, Mr. Mayor. I know a lot of people in my building recycle batteries, but they're not done in that fashion. Is it possible to have some kind of a visual that goes out with the battery recycling containers?
Deputy Chief?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Gardner. That information, I would have to actually look at what is actually at the multi-use buildings to see what other information can be provided with that, but I'll be more than happy to reach out to our call to recycle team and see if they can assist with that.
Councillor?
I'll follow up, Mr. Mayor. And I see that some of the big box stores like Staples, they do have the recycling available, which is wonderful. But if we don't do it properly, then it's a problem. So I'd appreciate any kind of follow-up you could provide.
Deputy
Thank
Chief?
you.
Thank you. Any other questions for the presentation? Seeing none, Deputy Chief, thank you very much for coming and all the work that you and CYFS does for the communities. Thank you. Council, I'll call the vote. That carries. Next, we have 5.2, Dave Lembcke and Don Goodyear, Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority regarding chloride in Lake Simcoe Watershed. Gentlemen, welcome. Where's yours?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Thank you to chat with you this evening about chloride in the watershed. Do have a presentation, respectful of the time, respectful that there's a game a little later.
Can I just get you to raise it out?
Sorry.
Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel will help you there. Just raise it just so the mic's a little bit closer to you.
Wow. Thank you.
There we go.
So as I said, we'd like to come talk to you about chloride in the Lake Simcoe watershed. By chloride, winter salt. So I may pop back and forth between the terms. And really, when we start to, I guess what really started to draw our attention to the chloride issue is the lake itself. And this is sort of the poster child we use to really highlight the issue of winter salt. A really robust data set that we have of monitoring data stretching back to the 1970s, when chloride concentrations were about 10 milligrams per liter or essentially ambient for many Ontario lakes. But since then, we've seen this sort of relentless increasing trend in chloride concentrations. Until today, we're sitting at around 60 milligrams per liter. And again, if this trend continues, there will come a point where we're going to start to cross some important ecological thresholds. And I've thrown the sort of the closest one, which is the CCME guideline, or the Canadian Council for Ministers' Environment. This is a threshold at which there are some sensitive species that will have life cycle impacts. So we'll see developmental or reproductive impacts on some of those species. So obviously something we'd like to avoid. We have some time, but really need to start to look at this trend and curb this trend in increasing chloride concentrations. If we step back and look at the watershed itself, and we look at the monitoring stations of our tributaries, so really the water feeding into the lake, again, we see this increasing trend pretty much across all of our monitoring stations. I've just thrown up, again, all of the places where we collect those tributary waters. We've trended that data. Every one of those up arrows is an increasing trend. There are a few that are horizontal, but there are no declining trends. So again, we're seeing increasing trend that we see in the lake mirrored in the watersheds. But as I said, the trend is one piece of the data. The other side of this is really looking again at those concentrations and when they cross some of these critical thresholds. A lot of information here, but really what I'm trying to show, this is again all those monitoring stations, and we're looking at the proportion of the samples over the last decade that have either exceeded that chronic guideline of 120, and that's the number that sits at the top of that bubble, or those that exceed the acute. So the acute is a threshold at which there are some species, sensitive species, that this is an intolerable concentration. This is a lethal concentration. Glass half full. If we look at sort of, again, all of our monitoring stations, we look to the sort of northeast quadrant of the watershed where we have lower road densities, smaller urban areas. There are none of these exceedances or very few exceedances of either one of those guidelines. But as we move into some of our more urban areas, the Newmarket Aurora corridor up into Barrie, we're not only seeing a large proportion of those samples that exceed that chronic guideline of 120 milligrams per liter. And again, this would be samples collected year round. So this is spring, summer, fall, as well as winter. We're also seeing some of those concentrations that are exceeding that acute. So we are having species that cannot survive under these conditions. And I'm going to draw your attention just to one example, and it's in Newmarket. It's just at the bottom of the screen. It's the 94 over 40 something. And this is Western Creek. And I'm not picking on Newmarket because they're doing anything remarkably different. In fact, they've made a lot of strides with their salt application rates and what they're doing around it. It's a bit of a unique catchment in the proportion of it that is urbanized. So it's about 97% urban. It's a very small creek, so there's not a lot of dilution capacity. And what I've also done is I've circled the area in red that is commercial catchments or institutional catchments. So that top area is the Young Davis intersection. So we've got Upper Canada Mall. We've got sort of that commercial corridor along there. So we've got a lot of parking lots that are contributing. Don's going to chat in a second about some of the things we're trying to move forward to manage this. This is one of those watersheds that if we start to address some of these private parking lots, we could really see, hopefully, some changes in what we're witnessing in this watershed. To that end, we've upped our game around the monitoring. So as opposed to doing sort of biweekly samples, we've used continuous chloride monitors to really understand how these concentrations are affecting this creek and how often we're getting some of these high concentrations. Unfortunately, the data was really did highlight the gravity of the situation and what we had been missing. We're going to have to adjust our frame of reference to looking at this graph, but this is our continuous chloride data from last winter, which granted was a bit of a challenging winter. That blue jagged line is our continuous chloride concentration. Again, changing our frame of reference from that very first slide, that yellow dashed line that sits right at the bottom is that chronic concentration. That red dashed line is acute. And in fact, the one I've thrown up high is ocean salinity. And so if you follow the graph, you'll see there's 3 instances in the winter of 2025 that Western Creek flowed saltier than the ocean. When we look at the ecology of this stream, we really do see that impact. It's a very impacted ecology. The fish, the benthic macroinvertebrates, are not doing very well in this creek as a result of that. So while we have a bit of time in the lake to start to curb that trend and address this chloride issue, these urban creeks are really where those impacts are being felt and really where we need to look at more aggressive ways of altering these. Before I give it over to Don to talk about it, I just wanted to throw one other consideration or one other study we had done, really because when we started to look at the salt issue, we saw these chronic over applications were fairly prevalent and really coming from this sort of myth around more salt is more safety. People really seem to think that a crunchy underfoot is the safest surface in winter, to the point where it's not uncommon to see something like 488 grams per meter square commonly applied, where something in the realm of 60 grams to 100 grams is really what the literature is saying is a more appropriate rate. So we did a few studies with a friction tester, and you don't need to know a lot about a friction tester aside from the values you can see that are above 0.5 are considered safe surfaces to walk on or move on. Below that are not as safe. And some of the really interesting things that popped out was bare pavement is the safest surface, which doesn't really surprise. But what we're looking at here is bare pavement, a little bit wet on the left. And on the right, it's the same surface. It's not snow, but that's actually salt. So there's an over application of salt that left a granular material there and actually got us a less friction surface, a less safe surface than that bare pavement. I find this next one sort of what I would say is our piece de resistance. We had a grossly oversalted walkway to the tune of about 900 grams per meter square. We have that same surface with just a skim of snow, and they have the same friction. So these are both equally unsafe surfaces. A little bit of salt, 60 grams per meter square on that right surface probably would have resulted in a much safer surface. So it's really begging the question, are our expectations around winter salt and winter maintenance unreasonable? Are we placing too high an expectation of those surfaces when really, if we start to look around our built environment, we see a number of surfaces we cross every day, year round, high heel shoes, patent leather shoes that are somewhat unsafe against that friction thing. So I think rethinking how we're asking our winter maintenance contractors to maintain those surfaces would be a good first start. And with that, I'll pass it over to Don.
Thank you. Good evening. Okay. But we do live in northern climates. Public safety is paramount. We recognize that clearing walkways and roadways is necessary. The good news is there are good practices out there, many of which your staff employ all the time. So kudos to you. I think there's a couple. There we go. Oh, sorry, one too far. There are best practices out there, but there are barriers to adopting those for some environments. Concerns about liability, concerns over additional cost, and concerns over public expectations. So we've done some work to try and test those concerns in a private parking lot scenario. Should point out that we're primarily focused tonight on those private parking lots, not municipal or provincial roads. And we conducted a study for about 10 years in a large commercial parking lot not far from here. And we were fortunate enough to have two different contractors that maintained the surface over that study, about 5 years each. Obviously, they're looking after the same property. They have the same concerns, safety, liability, and use similar equipment, but vastly different approaches. Contractor A was what we would have called kind of old school, typical application, high rates, the same rate regardless of the storm event or the amount of salt that was remaining on the parking lot. Contractor B, on the other hand, pretty proactive, adopting some of those best practices, would send a staff person out to the site when weather was forecast to confirm the storm was actually as forecast, and he would tailor the application to the specific conditions of the parking lot on or for that storm event, and the results are pretty impressive. So the graph that's on this slide here, the blue bars are the amount of salt that the kind of old school contractor A applied. The red bars are the amount of salt each year that the more proactive contractor B applied. You could suggest that contractor B got lucky, but in fact, the dash line on there is the winter precipitation. So pretty similar winters. And in fact, the municipality in which this study was located applied more salt in the second half of the study. So we don't think that contractor B got lucky. We think that the change is a result of that adoption of best practices. And it's a kind of a triple bottom line win here. Much less salt applied, significant cost savings. We estimate about $40,000 in material savings per year by adopting best practices for this large commercial lot. So it's possible to do. There are on occasion some substantial cost savings that make it easier to adopt. It's reliant on good training and good information about the storm event you're trying to manage. What we're there we go. What we're seeing in some of the northern U.S. states is a model that we think would make a lot of sense for Ontario, affectionately known as the New Hampshire model. They have a similar piece of legislation that governs liability, occupiers' liability. What that legislation says is that the duty of care for a property owner and by extension a property manager is met if a property, if the contractor takes state certified training, passes a state certified test, and follows state certified best practices. If they do all those things, they have met their duty of care and they are held harmless in slip, trip, and fall lawsuits. That approach has been defended in the highest courts in New Hampshire. So it has resulted in less salt being applied in those commercial parking lots in New Hampshire. Think that it makes a lot of sense for Ontario. A lot of support for it from the winter maintenance industry. These folks are struggling with insurance costs and sometimes even obtaining insurance and a number of litigation claims. Insurance companies are hesitant to combat those claims because there is no threshold for duty of care here in Ontario. So they simply settle, and it's resulting in premium escalation dramatically. So a lot of support for the adoption of that practices, that approach here in Ontario. So bottom line, looking, Mr. Mayor, for the town's support for that New Hampshire model, where feasible, hiring trained contractors here in the town. Would kind of flex your purchasing power and increase the pool of trained contractors available in the watershed. Your staff do a great job of employing best practices, but things are evolving. So, empowering them to stay on top of those innovative best practices and implement those is something that we'd also encourage. I think that's it, Mr. Mayor, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Council, can I get a motion to receive the presentation? Councillor Thompson, Councillor Gardner, any questions? Councillor Thompson?
Thank you for both for being here and for doing the presentation. And perhaps you can just speak a little bit more to the resolution aspect of it, which is one of the asks. I mean, certainly it's been making its rounds. There's been a number of municipalities in York Region and elsewhere that have passed it. But perhaps you can speak to the intent, and then I'll make a brief comment after. Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Don?
Certainly, through you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for the question, Councillor Thompson. So the resolution that was passed at our Board of Directors encouraged the province of Ontario to adopt the limited liability approach that has been implemented in New Hampshire. It also encouraged municipalities to lead by example in terms of adopting best practices and hiring certified contractors where feasible.
Councillor?
Thank you. Just briefly, I'm working with the clerk. The motion itself will be on the next agenda cycle. It's really put together by the Ontario Salt Pollution Coalition. It's been passed by 20 plus municipalities already. I'll certainly in advance send all members of council the website as well so they can take a look at it for themselves. And hopefully council will also see value in doing the same advocacy efforts that the rest of the other municipalities in York Region and Lake Simcoe as well as passed. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gillen?
Thank you. Appreciate the presentation on this. And I know this has been an ongoing subject, especially through the Watershed and Lake Simcoe Conservation Authority and other conservation authorities, salt being the number one, additive to contributing to our watershed. And Councillor Gardner was on the committee for a long time as well. And I do recall, because I did sit into quite a few meetings for quite a few years, and liability was the number one concerns. And so looking at your presentation, essentially from what I'm understanding, you can correct me if I'm wrong, it's more or less using a different metrics to decide whether or not they're going to be applying salt on a regular basis, which is what they're doing now, versus having that authority to be able to say, you know what, I'm not going to put that standard amount of salt on because I can see that it doesn't need that. But what this presentation doesn't say or doesn't delineate is the liability of that contractor to make that decision of what that actually means. Is there some sort of machine that they go out and they put on the ground as a test to say, okay, it's 0.32, whatever that measurement you had up on the screen there earlier. I'm not quite sure I know what would be acceptable, but is there safeguards in place? Because I certainly would say, like, if I'm a contractor, I don't want to be the one to say, well, I felt it was okay not to put salt on. Someone slips and then where's the finger being pointed? And that's the ongoing issue. So is there some sort of external safeguard that's being presented to train contractors on to be able to make this decision?
Mr. Goodyear?
Yes, thank you through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Gillard. That great question, and the simple answer is yes. Interestingly, the training program that New Hampshire requires their contractors to follow is actually a Made in Ontario program. It's the Smart About Salt program that originated in Waterloo, who's been grappling with chloride issues in their drinking water for a couple of decades now. So they're pretty advanced in this field, and it's that framework, Councillor, that specifies the rate of application for different conditions, and then part of the certification would be to have calibrated equipment that distributes the salt at that prescribed rate. So it's not as much of a judgment call by individuals as following a prescription in a training program.
Councillor?
Thank you. So essentially, this is a certified training program that we're asking municipalities to adopt and then utilize certain tools to allow them to make that decision. This is a physical piece of equipment?
Mr. Goodyear?
It's less targeted to municipalities, although the program would apply to maintenance of facilities. For roads management, the Ontario Good Roads Association has a number of best practices, and you would have salt management plans for your roads management. This is really some low-hanging fruit that we see in mostly private parking lots. It does apply to institutional parking lots as well, but these are private businesses that we're thinking of that would be, and they are, Ontario Landscape Association, for example, is actually clamoring for this program because they see it as a real help for them in managing insurance costs, liability, and kind of leveling the playing field.
Councillor?
Thank you, through Mr. Mayor. All right, so from what I understanding, when you're saying the low-hanging fruit, you're looking at on a provincial level for industries all across the spectrum, whether it's through, like you said, Landscape Ontario or other contractors being hired at private properties, that they all have a standardized certification, kind of like a WMIS, if you may call, to say that you must have this in order to be able to apply this salt, and this is going to help reduce that number of salt. And some of the business case that you've also presented is the cost savings on your supply of the salt, but also on the insurance saving, and be able to make a decision that's going to be best for the environment. Is that pretty much all in the package?
Through Mr. Mayor, sorry. Yes, I think you've got it there. A little heavier on the incentive than the stick. There could be contractors and property owners that choose not to adopt the framework, but they would be they wouldn't have that liability protection. So by getting the training, hiring certified contractors, following those best practices, you shield yourself. So it's more of a carrot than a stick.
Councillor?
Thank you. Okay, that answers some questions, because I know that we've had this conversation before, and it feels like sometimes we talk in circles, but then it's how do we actually get it implemented and done? And I appreciate what you're trying to do. And what I'm hearing is that you want to have other municipalities support this resolution and the motion that's forward, to put pressure on the province to be able to enact these types of new certifications and incentives and allow to make change to happen. So it's about time. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gardner?
Hi, thanks very much for coming. I know that the authority has been trying to educate on salt for a long time. And I think there was information, perhaps it was a study, I don't remember, but it was actually print information that was sent to all of the municipalities, and I'm thinking maybe 10 years ago. So I think that we do our best to follow best practices. looking for a nod. And with all of our parking lots, with everything, it's very disappointing to hear that the amount of salt in the water has gone up so much. The province doesn't have to listen to us, but I'm thinking Councillor Thompson's motion, thank you, if there's enough pressure from all of the municipalities, and it is helpful to everybody. The piece that we have to work on is the public expectation. Yes. And that's going to be a bit of a hard one, but we'll have to work on it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Councillor Weiss.
Thank you. Great presentation, very compelling. The only thing that I am asking, because I didn't hear it, who is the certifying body? Right? Who's potentially going to be the certifying body through you, Mayor?
Mr. Goodyear.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. To be determined, the province would have to establish that body. There are a couple of frameworks that have been proposed. One is the Smart About Salt program that's run out of Waterloo that has the infrastructure in place, the training modules, and that's what's being followed down in New Hampshire. Landscape Ontario has a similar framework that they've also put forward. So the province would have to determine which they feel is appropriate, and perhaps it's a combination of both. But I think the province would be the arbiter of what's required, and then that would be applicable across the province.
Yeah, and hence the advocacy from our standpoint is what you're here for. So thanks very much, and I look forward to Councillor Thompson's motion.
Thank you.
Councillor Gallo.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for the presentation, and if it works in New Hampshire successfully, why not take a stab at it? And my questions may be answered within the motion. I haven't seen it, but I look forward to seeing it. The only one area that I kind of find a blank spot is, and I've been in property management a long time. I get the sense that the impetus to this is let's get less salt on the roads. Let's prove through various methods that putting less salt is just as safe, if not safer. And if you do that, there's a regulatory body that allows you to save money. You don't have the liability. I guess the piece that's missing for me is, what if a contractor is certified, but is a rogue contractor? And doesn't follow the process, and someone does slip and fall, and all of a sudden they're not liable. There must be some type of mechanism in place to cover that, because odds are that that's going to happen. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't know if that's something you can answer, or if it's been discussed. Or
Mr. Goodyear.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, great question. The way that New Hampshire tackles that is through a record keeping requirement as part of the registration. So it's following taking the training, passing a test, and then keeping records to demonstrate what you've done each storm event. So it's kind of like a truck driver keeping a log of the hours driven. It's a log of the salt applied and how much and when and what the weather was and all that kind of information.
Councillor.
Yeah, and I guess there must be some way of, as they take pictures or something, because they can easily say, I put so much, log it in, but they didn't, and there's a slip and fall, and they're still not liable. But anyways, I'm sure those details would be flushed out. Thank you.
Councillor Gartner, second time.
Thank you, but we're still, I'm still talking, John and Councillor Gallo, penalties. Will there be penalties imposed?
Mr. Goodyear.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if I could ask for clarification, penalties for non-conformity?
For non-compliance, even with the companies that are the rogue companies that were referred to.
Through Mr. Mayor, the framework is to be determined, so a little bit speculative, but I think that the penalty would be losing that shield of limited liability. So if you don't follow best practices or can't prove it, or someone documents that conditions weren't safe, then you wouldn't be protected. So I think it's a bit of a self-regulation.
Councillor,
Thank you. Self-interest. Thank you.
Councillor Thompson, second time.
Thank you. And these are all great questions. I think that the motion that's been circulating amongst the various municipalities really just talks about it from, as mentioned earlier, an advocacy perspective. It's about getting the key stakeholders all together, about collectively trying to figure it out and create that standardized process, be able to address the concerns that Councillor Gallo and yourself have brought up, so that, you know, through that process and whatever the details of the regulations are, they're able to address those situations. But the motion itself is just really getting municipalities to push that effort for advocacy to get this in place, or at least give it some consideration.
Any other questions? Seeing none. Gentlemen, thank you for coming out this evening. Call the vote. That carries. Move to delegations. We have 6.1, Ian and Julie Smith, residents, regarding item 8.9.5. Yep, come on up. Welcome. You have 5 minutes and the floor is yours.
And do we address the mayor? Is that?
Just address council, like, the chair, through the chair, everything's through the chair. So yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to let you speak then, Chair.
Thank you. I'm gonna have to make this lower. Thank you, council. Thank you, mayor. We have been residents of Aurora for over 20 years now, and we own a business and resident building on Yonge Street in Aurora. And about 2.5 years ago, a cannabis shop opened next door to us. And since then, our quality of life has been severely impacted. We have I won't go through everything. I don't have a presentation, but one day I would like to present my thousands and thousands of videos and photos of what actually goes on in our property and around our property that is impacting our daily lives. So we every day experience many homeless or unhoused people, customers, everybody trespassing on our property, parking in front of our driveway so that we can't get in or out at any time of day. We get a lot of cannabis garbage thrown around our property, on our property. And now we have people that come and look through the garbage, hoping they're going to find something. So we get many people parking, in and around the area that are illegally parking. So when we approach them, we are basically abused and verbally abused by these people who say that they have the right to park wherever they want to. So I have been abused many times by many customers. My husband has as well. And on a daily basis, we have to deal with these people. So now that they spend a lot of time outside smoking, I see young families walking by with their kids, and they have to, be part of this whole situation. So out front of this particular store, there is a little stoop or a step, and people hang out on it. They smoke their cannabis, and we have to deal with it. We can't spend time out on our property anymore. Families, the library, restaurants, everybody in the area has been impacted by this, and we hope that something could be done. We have asked for much help from police, from bylaw, from the mayor, from councillors, and up until this point, we haven't had any help. So we have asked for signs. No parking signs would have helped. We have asked for some paint to be applied to the pavement out front that says no parking. We have not received that. So we have put our building up for sale 2.5 years ago when this all started. And we have been told by many realtors that our property value has been dropped by at least $500,000, and we are unable to sell our property and leave from the area. So I'll let Ian speak in case there's anything else.
I guess what I would like to say is that, it started off as an issue that we were looking at for just ourselves. And, it really has impacted us. But, talking to several people about the situation, it's become kind of clear to me that these stores have been allowed to open. And I think it's the municipality's responsibility to see how they're impacting the municipality. And there's nobody that understands the impact better than Juli, who has to sit next door to it and be constantly harassed day in and day out. It's not an issue that's getting better. It's not an issue that's going to go away. Is that me? Is that my
You
time
have
up?
1 minute left.
Okay. So I guess what we're asking is, we'd like to bring some attention to it. So we'd like a potential task force or a board to look into how these shops and residential areas are impacting the people that live around them. So I'm not saying that, my goal is to ban marijuana. That's not my business. My business is that, I don't think they should be negatively impacting everybody surrounding them, and I feel they are, and especially in our circumstance, they are. They're attracting people in that are not Aurora citizens. They're attracting people from all over because different towns have approved it, and Aurora has, other towns haven't. So. I'd like to know what the impact on the community has been. We talked to some councillors, and I don't need to be specific, but some of the people that we talked to didn't know that cannabis shops were drawing problems. And I just like it to be on the table and looked into.
And the safety as well for the community, because the people that it is drawing to the area, we've now had arrests outside our house. I've had people trying to get into my house. I've had people in my backyard. I've had people pulling on door handles trying to get in. We've had, threatening our son. Like it's really out of control. So we would like some help, please.
It's not only. My name is Frank Marchese from Frank.
If I could just get you to wrap up, but go ahead quickly. Yes.
I'll be quick. It's a problem that's happening now, but when we have elderlies, we have an elderly building that's right next door. That's when the biggest problem's going to come. Is we have to look at for their safety, okay? And there's packages in my driveway. I can just imagine when the building is done, what's gonna happen then.
Thank you. Councillor, can I get a motion to receive? Councillor Gallo, second. Councillor Gardner. Councillor Gallo, questions to the delegate?
Thank you. I just wanted to, I think on behalf of council and certainly the community, that it's unfortunate this situation has been brought on you. It hasn't fallen on deaf ears. The motion that's on the agenda tonight is to strike a task force to try to figure out a strategy, not just for you, but there may be others in the community that are experiencing the same thing. I hope you put your names forward, one of you or two of you, to sit on the committee would be very helpful. And let's see if we can find a solution to this. That was the best way I could figure out on how to get everyone in a room, figure out all the details, and try to put our heads together to try to figure out a solution. So I'm hopeful something will come out of that, provided council will support the motion tonight. So
thank you.
Thank you. Don't give up, and we're working on it.
Thank you.
Councillor Gardner, questions to the delegate?
Comment. I'm just so very sorry that you're experiencing this. That's affected your quality of life. It certainly wasn't council's intention ever to cause you hardship. And I'm sorry.
Thank you. Yeah, we just wish that when they approved cannabis in Aurora, that they took into consideration where they were putting these buildings, because there's young families in behind the building. There's my family, there's restaurants, there's libraries, there's schools, and it's affecting everybody in the area. Thank you.
Thank you for coming forward.
Thank you.
Councillor Gallo.
Thank you. Thanks for coming today and speaking to Councillor Gallo's motions. Apologies, I wasn't able to joined that meeting I know that you had with Councillor Gallo, and I believe maybe Councillor Weiss might have met with you as well. And I know that we've had several conversations with YRP and bylaw and going back and forth, and it has certainly been trying. And I will ask for some updates. I know I've been pushing hard behind the scenes for the painted lines, and I've been assured that this was supposed to happen when we did our parking update and so forth on Yonge. And I don't know the answer for you, so I will ask the new business about why we haven't been able to do that, because I do think at least it'll help a little bit as far as delineating the lines. As far as the task force, so hopefully, again, it's like you said, maybe it's not your experience. Other businesses are having the same experience, and I suppose putting everybody together hopefully will create some sort of a collective solutions to going forward to help the situation. And I am a little upset that some of the considerations that we had asked for were not respected, although it's not something that they were obliged to do. And I'm also a little disappointed that during that time there was extra funding I believe municipalities were to get in order to help mitigate these funds that were supposed to be resources allocated to YRP and the town for this type of education, and also for this type of ramped up resources for this type of behavior. Yes. And it's going to put it in a little bucket like that. And I haven't really seen the results of that the way that I thought it was supposed to be intended. So let's hopefully this is a good step forward. Thank you.
Councillor Weiss, question?
Yes. And I also want to thank you for the information that you gave us when we were there. I don't know if I told you, but we also have another 2 or 3 other complaints from other neighborhoods that are similar. And in my experience here, that it really is the ownership, and there are some things that owners can do in order to manage the customers that they have in their stores. And so that I think that when the task force comes through with Councillor Gallo, that will be part of the some of the recommendations.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none. Julie and Frank, thank you very much for coming this evening. I think we're all looking forward to seeing the report and recommendations that come from the task force if approved this evening.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much. All vote. That carries. Consent agenda. Someone like to move that? Councillor Kim, seconder. Councillor Gittleland. Any comments, questions? Call the vote. Nope. Yep. Carries. Committee of the whole meeting reports. Anyone want any items pulled? Otherwise, I'll ask for a motion to Councillor Gallo.
Don't see them, but 8.81. Not the 9s, correct?
Pardon?
Just 8s,
Just 8s.
not 9.
No, 9 we just did. Those are
That was the only one I just want to speak to, that one.
okay. Councillor Weiss.
8.32. 8.81 was done.
Which one, sorry?
8.3, 8.32.
Yep.
I just said 8.81 was done. I had it as well. And just a question on 8.7.1.
So you pulled 2.
Yes.
correct? Thank you.
Yep.
Councillor Gardner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was a little bit late this evening. Are the motions going to come? The motion, Councillor Gallo was talking about having something go to a committee of the whole.
That's something in 9.
That's a 9. Thank you.
Thank you. Any others? I get a motion to approve all items, committee of the whole meeting report of October 14, 2025, excluding 8.3.2, 8.7.1, and 8.8.1. Councillor Gilliland, second. Councillor Thompson. I will call the vote. That carries. 8.3.2, Councillor Weiss, you pulled this. Did you want to move the recommendation? Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Thompson, thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Weiss.
Yes, thank you. I was away when this came forward and I have interest in the sport plan. So I was away and I saw it on the YouTube channel. So I have a couple of questions that I probably would have asked, and I'm interested in hearing what some responses would be to it. So it was good to hear the comment about providing some metrics about the environmental scan, and I look forward to seeing what those metrics are. However, I noticed throughout the report that a lot of what is in here are process activity, which means things that are being done rather than an effort to report some of the performance outcomes, performance measures. And so the best example of this, I think, when I looked at the table on page 5, 6, and 7 of 10, it's an extensive table of the work that was being done or has been done in the past. And what it does is defines a lot of process, and I think the processes and the work that's being done is fine work. But I don't see any metrics related to the goals or the KPIs or the impacts on it. I'm glad to see the activity, but from a metrics point of view, I believe that reports such as these in the future should have data included and related to numbers such as the type of people, the demographics, the ages, all the rest of the things that matter. I don't see the metrics related to any surveys. I don't know if the surveys were done, satisfaction surveys, people who have participated in these kinds of things. And I'm wondering if it's possible to have in the future, because we really can't go back and take a look at some of these things, but in the future when these processes are being done, that there's attention made to gathering data, measuring the data, evaluating and assessing it, and being able to put it through the reports, through you, Mayor, to
Ms. McDougall.
Ms. McDougall, perhaps.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just on a quick comment for you, and then possibly Ms. Worth, who's here tonight, could help elaborate. Some of the numbers are presented in the presentation, so I don't know if you've had a chance to review the presentation, but there's some in that.
Yeah, I saw.
In addition to that, maybe Ms. Worth can enhance some of the details you're looking for and where we're going to be picking up that information.
Fair enough.
Ms. Worth, welcome. You want to add to that?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. We do have quite a bit of data on a lot of the activities that are listed in this report. So certainly moving forward, we can add that data to the report we have. We often do surveys after, various events and that sort of thing. So we absolutely can provide that data moving forward.
Councillor?
Yeah, that's good. I mean, the issues that we talk about environmental scan, which is how many people, what age groups, what genders, what abilities and disabilities, et cetera, they have, is really kind of important. And so, for example, when we are training people, it'd be good to know exactly how many people attended a training. We would like to know the ages and what reasons they're there, what the purpose of the training was. And for example, when we're training young girls who are going to be our sport leaders, I'd like to know whether they're residents of Aurora whether they have been followed up with, whether they have some mentoring, whether they are being placed in an environment where they can use these skills, because we're doing this to benefit the community, and I'd like to see that community benefit come back. So it's really a matter of doing that one last phase, which says, well, how do we demonstrate what we've done and what the impact has been in the community? And I just think it's a step that's been left out of the report in a comprehensive manner, and I think it would be valuable for everybody to see that through you, Mayor.
That's right. So you nodding your head, yes?
As I said, we have a lot of that data and we can certainly provide it moving forward.
Councillor?
Thanks. That's all I have for that.
Thank you. Councillor Gardner? Just remind everyone we spoke about this, so if you're bringing something new, go ahead.
Yes, and I did mention that I'd be addressing this at this meeting. I don't through Mr. Mayor, to Ms. McDougall, I don't understand what the budget is. I know from the presentation that staff mentioned that our communications staff were involved, our administration was involved, facilities staff, the use of the facilities. Have these things been figured into the budget? Because it is a use of staff time. Maybe you could just give me some more information on the budget.
Google.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, with regards to the operating budget related to the sport plan and ultimately the position that our coordinator or specialist has and the ability for her to deliver programs, that is a budget line that we have within the operating budget. I think that's what you're referring to. So these programs that are being discussed, either there's a fee for that service, which helps cover the costs, or there's a sponsorship that's been obtained that helps cover the costs, or even a grant potentially. Where that doesn't cover it, there is a small operating budget that is utilized, and it's in the existing budget now in our operating for community services.
Council.
Thank you. Could we have more of a breakdown on that?
Ms. Mudu.
Certainly, I can certainly have the team summarize the sport plan and the sport initiatives that we do. Yep.
Council.
And what, I mean, it's great that there's support from the community, but I really want to know what it's costing the town and if that is also figured in the budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Call a vote. That's carried. 8.7.1. Councillor Reese, you pulled this one. Did you want to move the recommendation?
Yes, I'll move it.
Seconder. Councillor Gillen, thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Reese.
Yeah, the only question I have is that I noticed in the report that there was an annual contribution to the water reserves. And I know we always suggest that water rates are deliberately set not to create any profit for the town, but this suggests otherwise when people read it. And I know it's part of our cost of the water delivery that has to be included and paid to maintain the service and the reliability. But my question is, how is that surplus budgeted? Like, is there a certain plan of a certain percentage of the amount, or is it a matter of, what you think you want to have into the reserves? Because we really unless I read it wrong, I'm interested in how that budgeting occurs to collect money through water rates and our fees, and then put it in a reserve. So if you could help me with that, I'd appreciate it, Mayor.
Ms. Mary Van Kessel.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So the Funds which are going into reserve are related to the asset management plan and to fund future assets. So part of our obligations, particularly for water and wastewater, they ramp up in and around the 2050s, and they're fairly significant at that point in time. So what we're doing is collecting some money year over year to make sure that we have the funds that we need to meet our levels of service and also maintain our water system when we need to do so, because maintaining underground infrastructure is extremely costly.
Councillor.
Great. That's exactly the answer I wanted the public to hear. Thank you.
Councillor Gardner. Something new?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I wasn't intending on asking this, but further to the comments. So in our last budget report, in our repair and replacement reserve, we had, in my opinion, a very large shortfall. And you said, Ms. Swinner-Kessel, it does say, and I believe it's your report, that that's going to affect things like water and roads. So roads, to me, I can understand how it's going to affect the roads, but then following on Councillor Weiss's question and your answer, how is it going to affect the water?
Swinner-Kessel.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, so the contributions to capital that are in for water and wastewater either meet or exceed what we're recommended through the asset management plan. So those are a little bit ahead. Will actually get us to that fully funded state much faster than what we originally expected. So it's more in stormwater where we have a bit more of a challenge, and that's why in stormwater there's higher increases to that contribution to capital on an annual basis, because there's more funds that we need to start putting towards that service.
Councillor.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. So I'm not clear if the deficit is going to affect water, and in this case it's stormwater, then what could we expect would be the fallout from that?
Swinner-Kessel.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, so this report speaks only to the water system, which is water and wastewater. It doesn't provide financial information specifically related to storm, so that is a separate service and separately funded. We did have a stormwater plan which came to council a few years ago. We are looking at our stormwater rates going forward and finding ways to get to that fully funded state.
Councillor.
Thank you. Last follow-up, Mr. Mayor. So you were talking about underground infrastructure, and I believe underground infrastructure does also deal with stormwater. So we're separating it out for this report.
Swinner-Kessel.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, for this report is water and wastewater only. It does not include stormwater. That's separate infrastructure.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Call the vote. It carries. 8.8.1, Councillor Gallo, you pulled this. Did you want to move the recommendation? Yep. Thank you. Seconder. Councillor Gilliland. Councillor Gallo, go ahead.
Thank you. I pulled this because we had some residents last week in the chambers and they were a little disappointed because they didn't see the item pulled or discussed, and perhaps they're not aware of the process. So I pulled this because I wanted to first express some sympathy because they've communicated with us on some of their issues. But I just want to at least do my best to describe the process that I think we all share. And I found a little excerpt that I think captured it. I believe it was from another council. I couldn't find where it was from, but it's appropriate. And it says, under the Planning Act and associated policy frameworks, municipal councillors must base zoning bylaw decisions on sound and defensible planning rationale. A refusal must demonstrate clear and specific land use planning reasons supported by evidence. In this case, and in our case, similar, The proposed amendment is consistent with the official plan, conforms with provincial and regional growth policies, and advances key housing and sustainability objectives. Absent of compelling planning rationale for denial, refusal could be deemed unreasonable or contrary to good planning. Subject to appeal and reversal at a higher planning tribunal. I say this because while there's sympathy to what may happen to the building and the tenants in that building, I believe we have to stay within our lane and not necessarily interfere with any tenant and landlord issues. We base our decisions on good planning, and if there isn't good planning, then we make decisions to deny and that are supported and defendable. So I just wanted to give that sense to that community that this is the process that we're following, and I just wanted to make sure that they weren't ignored and that they were heard and appreciated.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, and I do echo Councillor Gallo's comments through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Muno. Mr. Muno, is there anything that we will be doing that will provide some protection for the current tenants?
Mr. Romano.
To you, Mr. Mayor. We've included a section in the report, and the landlord, is aware of the Residential Tenancy Act, and that their requirement is to provide sufficient notice. I believe it's 120 days to existing tenants prior to moving them out to implement the renovations. And there's also a requirement to provide in the current legislation compensation for those tenants if they need to are required to be relocated.
Councillor.
Follow up to you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't know if we talked about compensation. What do you mean by that?
Mr. Romano.
So you, Mr. Mayor, I think we've indicated on page 7 of that report, we indicate that the Residential Tenant Act requires landlords to provide a minimum of 120 days notice to vacate premises, and that those tenants will be provided compensation equivalent to 3 months rent or an alternative rental unit. So that's under the current legislation. The province has just tabled a bill, and there may be changes coming forward. But however, the current legislation requires landlords to provide notice and in some instances compensation.
Councillor.
Thank you, through Mr. Mayor. Follow up. Thank you, Mr. Muno, for reminding me of that. Is it possible that the tenants might have, when the construction is done, that they might be offered the units first? Although I'm assuming that would be a market rent.
Mr. Romano.
Through Mr. Mayor, that's correct, and we've had discussions with the applicant, and he will be offering the existing tenants first rights to come back to units in the building. But again, the rates will be based on market rates at that time, in response to the renovations and the improvements that are being made.
Councillor.
Thank you. I do approve of this zoning bylaw change. I think it's a perfect location for these units. The only thing I will say is that at the moment, these are affordable units, and I doubt that they will come back as that. Thank you.
Councillor Weiss.
Yeah, and just to follow up, since this is in my ward, I've had conversations with both all the retail people in the bottom, as well as the residents, and they have a lot of angst over this because it is an affordable housing option. and there's a concern that it'll be taken away. I believe that the zoning bylaw amendment is a perfectly good plan, and it's appropriate. So I've made arrangements to have a discussion with them regarding their options. I do recall, though, when this application came forward, that the applicant was very interested in helping them, and he was even offering expenses for moving and a variety of other things. And I think that has come off the table. So I'll have that conversation with them and we'll be able to report back.
Any other questions? Call a vote. That carries. Move to 9.1. Councillor Kim, this is your motion. Did you want to move it? So moved. Seconder. Councillor Thompson. Councillor Kim, go ahead.
Aurora has one of the finest trail systems in York Region, as most of us all know. For a small municipality like ours, we have a well-planned trail system that is enjoyed by many residents. But in order to be enjoyed, users need to feel safe. With the onset of electric scooters, electric bikes, and even human-powered bikes that travel very fast, it's been very challenging for certain segments of the population, or indeed everybody, to feel safe and enjoy the trail system. Our current bylaws already prohibit electric or motorized vehicles on our trails. So essentially the motion is to request that staff develop an education and communication plan to ensure every resident is aware of our bylaw and to share the trails well with others for all to enjoy. When there's large and visible signs, most residents will abide by them. Not all, but most. And signs are a start. And these steps won't solve all the issues, nor will it deter everyone from still using electric scooters or bikes on our trails, but I do believe this will be a step in the right direction. Thank you.
Councillor Gallo.
Thank you. I'm in support of this. I just had two questions. It speaks to the parks and public space bylaw, and specific to e-scooters and e-bikes. And the bylaw says the vehicles are prohibited, and the definition of vehicles in the bylaw says includes a motor vehicle as defined under the Highway Traffic Act, as may be amended from time to time, and any bicycles, carriage, wagons, leighs, snow machines, all-terrain vehicles, and power-assisted scooters. I think that's the one, or other vehicles of conveyance of every description whatsoever, the mode of power. So whatsoever the mode of power, doesn't matter the mode of power, but excludes wheelchairs and similar devices powered otherwise used by individuals due to disabilities, et cetera, et cetera. My only question is, it doesn't speak directly to e-scooters and e-bikes, and maybe when this bylaw was created some time ago, I believe they weren't popular. And if we're comfortable in the communication that we're putting out there being specific to e-scooters and e-bikes, I don't know whether or not that needs to be specific in the bylaw and that needs to be amended, or if it's captured under the current definition under vehicles. I'll leave that up to, I guess, staff or the councillor. If we're being specific in terms of referencing that particular bylaw, I think it should be either amended or we use more generic terms in the communication. The other thing is the point number 5, and it says, be it further resolved that staff identify any costs, any associated costs for signage, location, and installation. What are we going to do? What's the direction? What are we doing once we identify it? Is it an internal thing amongst staff? Are we expecting it to come back to council as a budget item? It's a little vague in terms of staff. We're giving them direction to identify the costs, but what are they going to be doing with those costs? Through you, Mr. Mayor, to either Councillor Kim or
Councillor Kim.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, during my conversations with with staff. My understanding was that the cost should not be sufficient enough, or it's not going to be a significant value. However, should it become a significant value, that it has to come back to council for a 26 budget item, or they will do so. But we just scratched the surface in our conversation, so I'll ask staff if they can assist on that one.
Steenkamp?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. From what I'm looking at, it's a public education platform that we're looking for. So I would think they would be temporary signs and things of what sort. And that we can accommodate through our current budget. We have mobile signs at our disposal already in our complement of equipment at the JOC. If it's some permanent signage along trails and things, we have a standard signage budget line within operations, and that is drawn on to add additional signing, replace signing, and things like what such. So I think we're comfortable at this point to cover everything under operating as it stands.
Councillor Gallo?
Thank you. Thank you. I'm happy to hear that. I was just that last point. There was a little bit of confusion in it, but if staff is fine with the direction that's being given, that's okay with me. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Gillen?
Thank you. I kind of had some of the same, I guess, concerns about this. I appreciate the principle of the motion. I think the education part does make sense, and I think it's good to have that communication piece. However, having a closer look at this, at first I was also in the same mind about the accessibility and the definition of vehicle and so forth. But then I also had realized this hasn't been updated since 2005. So I did a little bit more digging and realized as well that it doesn't really touch on the e-bikes as a definition. And from what I understand, there's multiple different classes of e-bikes. And when I did some further investigation, it was very rare among municipalities to ban e-bikes outright on trail systems. Rather, it would be certain classes. So for instance, a pedal assist mode e-bike would be something that would be considered very common for municipalities to allow on a trail versus a motorized throttle version of an e-bike that would be not allowed. And there has been some new guidelines that has been set out by the Ministry of Transportation to address this. And the Ministry of Transportation has been encouraging municipalities to develop their own bylaws around this to manage this type of new technology. So while I appreciate the intent and the motion and the educational piece, I feel like what we really need to be doing is pausing this motion and revising the bylaw to modernize the definition of e-bike in classes and have staff report back on whether or not we want to ban e-bikes outright or if we want to delineate what these classes are. From there, then I think it would make much more sense to be doing an educational piece after that fact, so there's no confusion. Because personally, I certainly don't want to ban e-bikes out completely without having to understand the different classes and what they mean. And just judging by the very quick investigation of resources that I've done, there again, very rare has municipalities banned them outright. That in fact, it is split in classes. So for me, I did talk to the clerk about whether or not it would mean doing an amendment, but this would be a completely separate motion. And so because of that, I personally would not want to be in favor of this at this time until an update was done to that bylaw. And if that means writing a separate motion for that, then that's something I'm happy to bring forward, or Councillor Kim wants to do it. But I would prefer to see an update done to the bylaw before we start launching an educational campaign and investing money in this at this time.
You, Councillor Weiss?
Well, I too am generally in support of this motion, as I believe we have to protect the active transportation routes. And the purpose of those trails is for physical activity and transportation. So I think anything that aids that, and of course, the only thing I think could be included in this report when we're thinking about what needs to come back would be the difficult question of enforcement and the costs of that enforcement, the capacity that we have to do that kind of enforcement. So I'd like to see, as well as the information about costing of signs, I'd like to see what happens with respect to enforcement, because we have quite a little bit of trails around and we're quite proud of those trails, and I'd like to see them used appropriately and safely. So if we could just consider that too on the motion, then I would appreciate that. And by the way, the whole issue, Councillor Gilland, I appreciate it completely. We've had discussions about the use of e-bikes and scooters and other vehicles on our sidewalks, because they create a hazard in many cases with some people. And the police, when we speak to the police about that, it's really a problem of classification of that type of vehicle and whether it goes 32 kilometers per hour or more. And then you have bikes that you can buy at 32 kilometers, you can change them so they go faster than that. So I think we got to have I appreciate what Councillor Gilliland was saying about the problem with what is being used, not only on our trails, but on all streets, but that will have to be a separate bylaw then when that comes around. Thanks, that's all I have.
Councillor Aaron?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you. Well, first a comment. Several years ago, I think Ms. Camp was certainly around. We had issues with residents being injured or nearly injured, including Arboretum volunteers, because of bicycles, just bicycles going at fairly high speed. And the result of that was signage. And I think the signage also said that bicyclists should use horns or whatever warning mechanism they had. And I really don't know how successful that was. I haven't heard from any residents recently. And the other thing is about dogs. I know a resident who will never be the same because of an incident with a dog on the trails. We just don't have enough staff to monitor the trails. As was said, we have great trails and a lot of them. So the first thing I'd like to say is, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Ms. Steenkamp, have we been successful with bicycles? We had any complaints? And also, I think 2005 bylaw needs to be updated. In any time, 20 years is long, but in the way the world has progressed, I think it certainly needs an update. And it's the chicken or the egg. I think we should have a look at the bylaw and update it and bring it to council before we follow through on this motion. But I would like to know, I would like to have any feedback from, and I'd also like to know whether we can have any cameras posted at the beginning of the trails. If that's...
There's lots of speed cameras that aren't being used.
Well, it's not, yeah.
We can call up Brampton.
But seriously, it's like, there's no way our staff, even if we had the money to spend on a huge workforce, that it would be viable to check all the trails. So through Mr. Mayor to Ms. Steenkamp.
Steenkamp?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So I'm understanding you're asking whether we've had any further incidences or conversations with residents about bikes. Bikes on trails are always a conflict with pedestrians and bikers. Predominantly, it's pedestrians on the trail. Bikers are going faster, they speed fast, and people walking don't like that interaction. It's difficult in Aurora because our trails are natural, they're not paved, they're not delineated. Some trails in other municipalities are paved, they have a delineation, bikes on one side, pedestrians on the other. But in Aurora, we have more of a natural feel in our trail system, and but we still get those calls regularly about interactions where people aren't necessarily happy about one of the other's activities.
Councillor.
Follow up, Mr. Mayor. Well, we're having problems with just regular bicycles. Councillor Kim certainly has a point, but through you, how do you see this progressing?
Steenkamp.
Well, from an enforcement point of view, I'd leave that with Ms. Cesaro, because it does come down to enforcement at the end of the day. And that's a bylaw function. And as you've been discussing, it's the amount of people that are out there and available to educate and help patrol the trails that is really going to come down to.
Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think that we definitely need signage, prominence. If we're going to do this, prominent signage. I've been meaning to follow up with respect to the signage on the bicycles. Doesn't sound like it's worked, but maybe even from a liability point of view, we should have better signage and have a look at our bylaw.
Thank you.
So, thanks. I guess I would like to have a look at our bylaw.
Thank you. Let's say, I think if Councillor Kim wants to maybe make an amendment to have staff look at the bylaw and bring maybe some necessary changes to update it that would allow them to move forward with this, I think that might be something that would be in order if that's what you wanted to do, Councillor. As far as, the bylaws, unfortunately, it varies by municipalities and it's kind of a patchwork of policies, right? AMO, I can tell you AMO being on the board, we're having discussions. This is a serious problem right across all municipalities as far as not just from a trails perspective, as was mentioned, sidewalks. There's a lot of issues. Legislation needs to catch up with the technology, and AMO is having discussions about how we can advocate to the province so that the province can make the necessary changes to legislation. So that way there's a standardized policy right across the province and it's not in a patchwork system. So hopefully AMO can get that work done. We're having those conversations right now. We have a board meeting in November. I know that that's going to be on that agenda, and we'll have those discussions and we'll see where they go. I'm also meeting the Minister of Transportation in November as well. So I will also be bringing that up to him and seeing where we move forward on that. But I'll pass it back to Councillor Kim. Second time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm open to whatever council believes is the most efficient way for our residents to feel comfortable, walking and hiking on the trails. It doesn't have to be in any particular order or the order that's put in the motion. I think the central discussion that we're having is on the second clause in terms of the definition of the vehicle under the Traffic Act and so on. In my discussion with our bylaw manager, Mr. Ray, I asked him the exact same question as well, which whether the kinds of things that we're trying to regulate, does that fall within the current bylaw? And in our discussion, he says it did. But certainly in our bylaw, maybe we can make it more clear through you, Mr. Mayor, to Ms. Desario. You've heard the discussions around the table about whether we need to update our bylaw, and if we do, I'd certainly go that route. But during my discussions with Mr. Ray, he thought that it did not need to be updated. Can you comment on that, please? And your recommendation as to whether we should go ahead and do that first before we do anything else.
Mr. Serio?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the councillor is correct. There were discussions with the bylaw manager and myself, and we did say that the definition of motor vehicles does include e-bikes or other types of motorized bicycles. We don't believe that the bylaw needs an amendment in this regard. We actually really encourage the education campaign because residents would be aware of what is actually in the bylaw and what is permitted on the trails. And as much as enforcement is a bit of an issue, the bylaw services, the officers do patrol the trails when they are able to. And because enforcement is a bit of an issue, that's why we would encourage the education campaign.
Councillor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Mr. Serio. I just want to speak to the discussion on enforcement. And I agree with everyone that it's hard to put something forward as a bylaw when it's challenging to enforce, whether lack of resources and so on. I would submit that a lot of the provincial, federal legislation that's out there, for example, speeding, it's enforceable, but 99.9% of the time it can't be enforced because of lack of resources, the lack of person power and so forth. So I think what's important is, through this education strategy and educating people that it's currently our bylaw on e-bikes and other motorized vehicles do exist. I think just letting people know that this exists will prevent or dissuade many people from riding their e-scooters or any kind of motorized vehicle or human powered vehicles at a certain speed, because I do believe that, generally speaking, majority of people, whether they know that it's a bylaw or it's a law, most will abide by them. Some won't. So I just want to speak to the enforcement part, because even in legislation provincially, a lot of things are not enforced majority of the time. But because we know you're not supposed to speed, I think majority of people try not to speed. Thank you.
Yep. Councillor Gilliland, second time.
Thank you. I understand and I appreciate the willingness to go about it the way staff recommended, but updating if that's the case. However, that also doesn't solve the issue about distinguishing between all three classes of the bikes. So as it's written as bylaw is now, essentially what it's saying is that council agrees to ban all e-bikes at all from the trails. And quite frankly, I don't know if that's something I would want to support without having a clear review of the bylaw to delineate that. So essentially, when I had conversations with the clerk, essentially it was in the opinion of the clerk that it might require consideration if this was allowed to pass tonight as is. So, what I had put forward, and it was recommended that I put a separate motion in, obviously I'm not going to go through all the whereas clauses, but essentially it's about recognizing the different classes of e-bikes and having staff directed to review the bylaw and then report back with recommendations whether or not we want to permit various classes of e-bikes on the Aurora trail system, and then update the bylaw necessary to align with how we would like to mandate that. And then once that's updated, then we can develop and implement an education and awareness campaign program to inform the residents of what's permitted and what's not permitted. So I feel like if we were just to arbitrarily pass this today based on the way it's written, it's like we're saying, okay, we're going to have an education blitz on everything and banning all e-bikes. And what I'm suggesting is that perhaps there's certain types of e-bikes that as a council, if we do that information on that and that work, that we want to actually allow in our trail system. And it would be rather confusing to say this week they're all banned. Down the road, we go, you know what? We like the pedal assist. That's fine. And it becomes confusing. So my position stands just based on the communication I've had with the clerk. I appreciate and I understand, Mr. Serio, yes, you were right. As the way it stands, it probably wouldn't need to be redone because we were already agreeing that we don't want to have any kind of e-bike on here. And so we understand what the vehicle means. However, at the end of the day, there's different classes. And I'm certainly not comfortable to completely ban all 3 classes of e-bikes at this time, knowing that there is the option to where many municipalities are allowing pedal assist, and it's very rare that towns ban them all completely. So as it's written today, I don't believe that there's an amendment that can be made at this time based on the conversations with the clerk. So I won't be supporting this today. I do have a different motion that is written to address the classifications of e-bikes. Yes, do I want to have an education program out there? Yes, do I want our trails to be safe? But at the same time, I want to support the active transportation. I want to have it clear, and I want to make the decision whether or not I want to allow class 1, 2, or 3 on the trails, or just class 1. And I don't think we've done that work yet. And here is a perfect opportunity to do that.
Councillor Gallo, second time.
Thank you. And I'm intrigued by that line of thought. I wasn't aware there was a different classes, notwithstanding my nephew showing me some electric bike, dirt bike, actually, that looked pretty fast to me. So there must be different classifications. And I feel like this is an issue of speed rather than the mode in which someone is traveling. If I'm on my bicycle and I'm going slow, that's perfectly fine. If I'm on a scooter that can only go so fast as even what do they define it as? Wheelchair or similar device that poses no harm to anyone at that speed, what's wrong with having that on our trails? Whether it's powered by electricity or by me pedaling my bicycle or tricycle or whatever I'm riding. So I'm starting to believe that a little more thought should be put into this. If I had a scooter and I had a choice, and if it was not very quick, and I had a choice to be on the side of the road to get around town, if it's treated like a bicycle versus on a trail, I would pick a trail over the road, provided there's certain speed limits and it doesn't pose any hazard to anyone else any more than a bicycle would. So I hope Councillor Kim is listening in. I would support exploring this a little further and determining what those classes are, and if we want to allow one of the lower classes and exploring that. And maybe we don't. I don't know, and we have to put more thought towards it. But generally, I support what we're doing here. I support the concept. Maybe we take a step back and reanalyze it.
Councillor Gardner, second time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate the information that bylaw feels that our current bylaw is current enough. I do want to repeat, we are already having a lot of trouble, or I don't say a lot, but constant complaints about bicycle speeding. To me, that should be an indication that we shouldn't be allowing any type of electric vehicle on our trails. And I'm not talking about motorized wheelchairs or scooters that are accessibility aids, but as the bylaw is up to date, I can support this motion. We're talking about the safety of walkers and other bicyclists on the trail, the children, a lot of seniors. If we're having trouble with bicycles, I think that's enough trouble. Thank you.
Thank you. Just got a question for Mr. Serio. Mr. Serio, you mentioned that the current bylaw essentially says meets e-bike scooters is kind of in the language, and that's the way you guys look at it. So what happens today? Can bylaw give a ticket to someone?
To you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, if there is somebody on the trail that is in an e-bike, they would be ticketed because they are not permitted on the trails.
Yeah, thank you. So this motion is not creating us to go give out tickets. This motion is saying we're going to educate the public that you can get a ticket because you can get a ticket as of today. Okay, so I'm in support of it. Any other comments? I think everyone's gone twice. Unless Councillor Weiss, I think you gone once. Yep. Councillor Thompson? No. Okay. Call the vote. That carries. 9.2. I can just get someone to move that and then we'll start the president. Councillor Thompson, Councillor Ken, thank you. So good evening, everyone. Tonight, I am proud to present the people's budget that puts the people of Aurora first. This plan invests in our community, protects our services, and ensures a strong, sustainable future for our town. As everyone is aware, the budget process affords councillors the freedom to propose amendments, make changes, or chart a different course if they choose. And I welcome feedback in that discussion. But let me be clear, the budget I've tabled tonight is one I support because it's balanced, responsible, and above all, puts the people of Aurora first. I know this is an election year, and naturally there will be differing opinions, but my focus remains on what matters most, delivering results for our residents and keeping Aurora moving forward. Over the past year, I've heard from residents across Aurora, in coffee shops, on sports fields, and at community events. People have told me that the cost of living is rising and they expect their local government to show the same restraint and discipline they're showing at home. This budget answers that call. It's responsible, it's balanced, and it's built to keep Aurora fiscally strong, not just this year, but for years to come. For 2026, we're holding the tax levy increase to 2.2%, down from our original forecast of 2.9%. That 2.2% includes 0.6% for town operations, 0.6% for Central York Fire Services, and 1% for capital reserve contributions, investments that protect our long-term stability and prepare us for the future. The people's budget is a result of hard work, tough decisions, and strong leadership, working closely with our CAO, finance team, and all town departments to find savings without sacrificing service. We reduced discretionary spending, paused non-essential projects, and implemented a temporary hiring freeze with no new staff positions added in 2026. This budget continues to deliver visible results across our town. New and upgraded playgrounds for families, more pickleball courts and sports facilities to keep our community active, trail connections that bring neighborhoods closer together, accessibility and facility improvements across town buildings, replacing aging town vehicles to improve efficiency, continued work on the Young streetscape, strengthening our historic downtown. At the same time, we're investing in essentials, our roads, water, and sewer infrastructure, the backbone of a safe, reliable community. Aurora's success hasn't happened by accident. Even through challenging times, a global pandemic, supply chain issues, and inflationary pressures, we've kept taxes low, maintained services, and delivered major improvements. We've done it while consistently maintaining one of the lowest tax rates in the GTHA. Aurora continues to be recognized as one of the best places in Canada to live, work, and raise a family. And that doesn't happen without discipline. It happens because we've made smart choices and stayed focused on what matters most, the people of Aurora. As we move forward, our goal remains clear: keep Aurora vibrant, keep Aurora fiscally strong, and keep Aurora as one of the best places to live, work, and play. We're not just planning for the next budget year, we're planning for the next generation. Before I close and pass this to Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel, I want to thank our incredible staff, our finance team, our CAO, our residents and businesses, and members of council who shared their thoughts and ideas. This plan is stronger because of your input. The 2026 budget is built for people, guided by principle and focused on progress. It ensures Aurora continues to lead, a community others look to as an example of what responsible, people-centered government can achieve. This is how we build the future together. That's what leadership is about, and that's what I'll continue to deliver. Thank you, and I look forward to the discussions. Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel.
Just waiting for the presentation to come up. Started. So the presentation this evening is the corporate overview. This covers the first part of your budget binders through the end of Chapter 5. The presentations that we will have next week on Monday cover the departmental presentations, which is 6 through 13. They include both the operating and the capital budgets relating to the departments. So we will get started here. So I'm just giving you a bit of an overview of what we're going to look at: operating, capital, reserves, and debt management. And here is where we are right now. So for our multi-year budget process, we are in year 4 of the budget. We're looking to readopt the budget that was identified for 2026 in last year's budget. At a glance, this is what the budget looks like. So as you'll see how the 2.2% increase breaks down, which still includes our 1% towards fiscal strategy, which is lower than what was forecasted for 2026 in last year's budget. You'll also notice that we are looking at for new capital budget authority, 28 million, and the 2026 expenditures are at 67.8. We are also not seeking any new debt authority as part of this budget. When we looked at the breakdown of the actual tax dollar, we can see the largest portion goes to York Region, and there's part which also goes to provincial education. For the town, there's 24.9 cents for the departments, 8 cents relating to Central York Fire Services, and then the rest of the breakdown is for the public library, corporate items, and our community partners, which excludes the library as it's separate on the slide. The overall household impact for the tax and the water budget includes in 2026 for an average assessed to home, and I know 800,000 seems low, but these are 2016 value assessments, is at $56.94 for an increase. And then when we look at our average quarterly water bill, which includes both water, wastewater, and stormwater charges, the increase is $19.26. And that has not changed since the budget was presented last year. So we'll jump into the operating budget now. As you can see, as required under the Municipal Act, the budget is balanced. We do have to balance all our expenditures with our incoming source of funds, the largest expenditures being related to salaries and benefits at about 30%, and the largest funding source being the tax levy and other tax-related items at 52%. When we look at the spending across the different service areas, we can see the operational services has the largest gross budget, and the reason for that is it includes both tax and water funded areas, including the sale of water through our water rates. But when we look at the budget overall from which the reliance on the tax levy, Central York Fire Services is the highest. And the reason for that is their service is primarily funded through the tax levy between us and Newmarket. Inflation is still continuing to be a bit of a concern. As you can see, though, we are managing well. We are managing below the actual inflation of CPI for the Toronto area. The Toronto CPI is that solid line, and you can see the 2% standard economist estimate of inflation is below that. And with our budget, we're managing fairly well towards more of that 2% target. That being said, inflation does still tend to be a bit of a challenge, and it was a challenge as we move through this budget. This gives you a bit of an overview of what the change is. So this change isn't a year-over-year change. This is a change to what we said 2026 would look like in last year's budget to what 2026 looks like now. So what are the changes to that outlook that we have? There's two noticeable well, there's actually three noticeable differences, but the two biggest ones, one of them being in roads, park, and waste, and it's specifically related to waste, and the other one in corporate items. What this is it relates to the producer responsibility for waste. So when we originally did these estimates about 3 years ago now, we didn't have much information available, and none of the other municipalities had actually moved forward at that point. So after we actually got through the budget process last year, we got to the point where we'd gotten more information, we got a better understanding of what our actual costs or savings were going to be, and we also got a bit of a sense of what some of our cost increases over time have been. So what's resulted is their savings is not as large as what we originally anticipated. But our plan was always to take those savings and reallocate them to reserves to help support capital growth or capital asset management. So what you'll see in this budget is because the savings have come down, that corresponding allocation to the capital plan has also been reduced. That just means in future years, we'll have to plan more towards capital in the future. Getting into some of those more specific changes to the outlook, salaries and benefits, particularly the benefits, was a bit of a challenge for us, created some pressure. There is a bit of an offset with the positions that are being deferred, so that did reduce some of the overall pressure. Throughout the budget, staff met with the CAO. We also had lots of discussions, and we really took a hard look at opportunities where we could find savings. One of the savings that was helpful for the overall budget was the savings on heating, which relates to the savings on the consumer carbon tax. We did have some other pressures, though, and those are identified, and we'll get a bit more into some of those specific pressures when the departments come forward and present their budgets next week on Monday. Here at the top, you can see the producer responsibility for waste adjustment that I had mentioned. So you can see that the offset against that reduction in the contribution to the reserves. There's also some removal of inflationary increases relating to our community partners. Part of the budget was we were trying to find savings and also not change our service levels. By removing those inflationary increases, the community partners are going to come here on November 10th. They're going to share with us their budgets, and it's going to give council the opportunity to decide if that inflationary increase should be added back to the budget through a budget amendment. So we look forward to seeing their presentations. Here, staffing, as mentioned by the mayor, staffing has been deferred. So there were originally about 4 positions that were included in there. Those have been deferred and are no longer part of the budget this year. So here we have the proposed rate increases. These relate to water, wastewater, and stormwater. So you can see here that the amounts that we had proposed in the outlook last year for 2026, those remain unchanged. So there's exactly the same. There's been no change to those. The water, wastewater services also does factor in the 3.3 annual increase from York Region for the purchase of wholesale water. And also includes the asset management obligations for water, wastewater, and storm. The impact on the average residential water bill is shown here. As mentioned, it has not changed. We're still looking at $19.26 increase over what the 2025 rates calculate to. So just in summary, the tax levy increase is 0.7% lower than what we predicted last year in the outlook. The user rate increases do remain the same. Inflation does continue to be a budget pressure, but it's been very well managed in this budget. And York Region is going to increase their water rates. And we've still got our support for asset management throughout the plan. Moving on to capital. We can see here with our proposed capital budget authority, so for projects that we need council approval to move forward with, we're looking at spending $67.8 million in 2026. This includes a lot of existing capital budget authority and includes some spending that was planned for 2025, pushed into 2026, and a lot of that is identified in the interim forecast report that's also on this agenda. You can also see much of the capital budget authority, about $95 million, has already been spent in prior years. This year, we're only seeking an increase of $28 million to increase the overall capital budget authority to $208,500,000. When we look at the 9 common years of the plan, so we do a 10-year capital plan, those 9 common years are from 2026 through 2034. So we can see that the plan is fairly stable. The plan of the 9 common years is about $37.8 million higher. And that's mostly attributable to some of the funds from 2025 getting pushed into that first year of the plan as the work was not able to be completed in previous years. But even with this, even with the increase to capital plans, and you can see here, most of our capital plan is resulting from asset management. Not all the projects do get in, but we do prioritize to make sure we get as much asset management work done as we possibly can. And asset management really is the focus going forward as part of the 10-year capital plan. And as you can see, the town manages $2.72 billion worth of capital assets. And this takes a lot of planning and building those reserves over time to get to where we need to be. We have been working towards building those reserves. I know there's a little bit of a spike here in 2026 for how much we're investing in capital. And again, that's some of the shifting. So some of the work from 25 moving into 26. Overall, there is a bit of an increase over time. 2035 is a little bit lower, but I expect next year when we do the next budget, that'll creep up a little bit higher. But you can see that we're doing a good job of trying to move towards actually getting to the point where we're meeting that annual asset management obligation. So this will give us an opportunity to keep moving forward with future increases in asset management reserve contributions. Much of the capital that we have relates to those asset management programs. So most of the asset management work that we do is part of a program. A lot of the work happens in the roads area, and then facilities is one of the other larger ones. And also when we look at the capital projects we already have $180 million, which is related to previously approved projects. So it's only that $28 million that we're looking for council approval to be able to increase existing projects or approve new projects. And again, here you get a bit of a tabular view of what some of those asset management programs are. And the programs have been very effective in helping staff being able to manage overall asset management needs. There are times where some projects come in a little bit under budget versus over budget, and these do give us the flexibility to move forward with capital asset replacement. Reserves and debt management. So overall, our reserves balance remains positive in all years. There is one reserve, which is our cash and lieu parkland, which is forecasting to dip into a bit of a negative in 2026, but should rebound after that. We'll also notice that the development charge reserve still maintains a positive balance. A little bit, it does increase more towards the end of the 10-year horizon. We did factor in a number of changes relating to Bill 17. As you know, as everyone is well aware, there was a lot of changes that impact our development charge forecast, the timing of when we collect development charges, and those deferral payments do have an impact. So we factor that in as part of developing the capital forecast to make sure that the plan remains affordable. So some of the impacts that we've had is that growth in new projects had to be deferred beyond 2035. And because the projected DC revenue was reduced from about 15.7 million annually to 6.2. So this has had a significant impact on our budget, but DCs are also subject to the market. And as the market changes and as the market hopefully turns around and moves forward, we may be able to bring these projects back in as the funds become available. This year, again, like last year, we do have that category of unfunded capital projects. These capital projects relate to projects which are growth related, but there is also a large benefit to the existing community, which means the funds to pay for these projects also need a non-DC funding source. We will work towards trying to gather potential grants and other opportunities to help fund some of these projects. And when those fundings do become available, we can look for opportunities to move them back into the plan. On debt management, some very good news. Come 2027, we will no longer have any tax levy funded debt. So our debt will only be related to user rates and most of it relating to development charges. Our debt still remains quite low. Our annual repayments, they are definitely manageable from what we are seeing and from what we are forecasting, especially for the development charges going forward. And as we know, the fiscal strategy is one of the largest policy documents that actually guides what we do for the budget. We make sure that we try to build a capital plan which is sustainable, make sure that we forecast out our tax levy at a reasonable level, and try to provide certainty to the residents of Aurora. So the next steps. As mentioned earlier, we get into the further budget committee meetings for the next 2 Mondays. November 3rd being the capital and operating budget reviews for the departmental budgets. And then November 10th, we'll have our community partners here with us. If you could kindly provide any amendments you may have to the clerk by November 13th so that they can be included on the agenda for November 17th. And then we will go from there as we move forward with those amendments. After that, the timing gets a little bit more flexible depending on what happens with the amendments. So with that, go Jays go, and I'm happy to take questions.
Any questions? Councillor Gillen? Oh, one sec here. Go
Thank
ahead.
you. Thank you. I don't know if we can I guess we can ask questions based on the report. I know it's not budget time, but just at a quick glance, I just wanted to confirm that for the public that the 2.2% proposed increase includes Central York Fire Services, the region, and the provincial education components, and that the town's operating capital share represents only about 1.6%. Is that correct?
That's correct, I guess.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So the 2.2% that we have includes town operations, our fiscal strategy, and Central York Fire Services. The region does their own separate budget, and I believe they came in around 4.4%.
3.22 plus 1% for transit infrastructure.
Yeah, a little bit over 4% combined overall.
Thank you. Just a quick question just about the fiscal strategy levy. I know that we have been taking a 1%. It hasn't been something we've done all the time, but it was something that we enacted, I guess, in the last 10 years or so. And it's just really a question. What would be the short-term and long-term impacts if we decided we wanted to pause that contribution for 2026?
Swear of Vincent.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So if we were to pause that contribution for 2026, we need to remove about $6.3 million from the capital plan worth of projects, because that would mean that if that doesn't go into the levy this year and we don't double up next year, we're going to have a shortfall in all future years moving forward of about $638,000. So it does have significant downstream impacts. We do need to try and work towards meeting some of our asset management obligations. And this 1% levy, that does go towards doing that, and it helps maintain the assets that we have.
Council.
Thank you. So really, it's a projection for the future. So I did have a question kind of on that. Given that in 2027, a lot of the capital projects seem to forecast drop down quite dramatically from 2026, are there any projects that you feel that could be deferred to 2027 to help soften the amount we're spending on the capital delivery?
Swear of Vincent.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So I don't want to speak to individual projects this evening. The projects, if you have questions about them, I do encourage you to go through the chapters. The projects which are seeking additional funds are identified in each department's chapter, and have those questions and work with the department heads and have those discussions with them. And then that way you can be prepared for the meetings moving forward and have those open conversations with the directors.
No, it's fair enough. I just wanted to throw that out there. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, that if there was any non-critical projects that were top of mind that we could identify, that perhaps if they were deferred to 2027, that perhaps it would help ease some of the burden for 2026.
Swear of Vincent.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the one thing I would caution is that when you defer projects, when you do them, you add inflation. So things do cost more in the future.
Councillor.
That's a great segue. So, through Mr. Mayor, Ms. against Van Kessel, because inflation is trending well above our municipal increase, can you outline what assumptions were used for 2026 model?
Swear, Van Kessel.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So it's a little bit different depending on if it's operating or capital. So with the operating budget, we look into a lot of our individual contracts that we have. So with a lot of our procurements, we enter into multi-year contracts, and we factored those in where we're doing our forecast for the different service areas. With capital, we actually provide a very different rates depending on the type of service it is. So we do some analysis looking at different sectors and trying to apply future rates which would work for those different sectors, because it's very different if you're buying a computer versus if you're building a road. So the inflation varies depending on the type of service or good that we're looking at.
Councillor.
I guess that leaves a lot of work to be done, and a lot of guesstimating, but at the same time we're trying to be realistic about what's in the future for our spending. A question about the producer waste, the cost savings that we have on that whole new project, the $695,000 that's being offset for the project. Is that something that we can utilize to stabilize our levy, or is this something that has to go into these reserves directly?
Swear, Van Kessel.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So that amount is not the savings. That's actually the reduction in our estimate to the savings that we had last year. So the savings, Ms. Teenkamp will get into that in her presentation next week. She will explain what the actual savings is. But what we are doing is we are contributing those to asset management, and that's in accordance with the report that went to council last year in September about how we're planning to fund our asset management obligations.
Council.
Perfect. Thank you. And just one last general question. Some members of the community were wondering, and maybe it's for the communications department, I don't know, if the budget engagement link to encourage people to get involved could be in the banner on the front page, so people are engaged and they know that they could put their input into the budget. Is that something that we could have on the first page?
Swear, Van Kessel.
Through Mr. Mayor, that was done. Communications did help us, and they supported us by adding it to the banner. So it's one of the elements that rolls through.
Oh, okay, good.
Councillor.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. I'm not sure if it's best to address it to Mrs. Winright Van Kessel or Mr. Nadarozny, but just in terms of the slide that talked about the impact on growth projects, you indicated that there were 7 projects that are going to be deferred beyond 2035. I just want to understand the process and how we picked those particular projects to defer.
Swear, Van Kessel.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I wasn't sure if he was nodding and pointing at me or nodding and saying he was going to answer.
I think he was pointing at you, Ms. Wainwright, I guess. Go ahead.
So as for our growth projects, one of the things we do is we actually look at the prioritizing projects over the longer term. So the corporate management team does a lot of work in looking at the prioritization of projects. And then some of it comes down to money and funds available. So we do that analysis first, but then it comes down to what can we actually afford to do. And then we work with the different service areas to identify which ones are more of the most needed by the community. With the asset management, determining what goes in the plan is a little easier. We go more towards what our asset management plan would cite and the asset conditions. But with those, we look more at what the community need is overall.
Councillor.
Great. Thanks. Nice to hear that there's a bit of a criteria and be able to assess them.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? Call the vote. Councillor Weiss. It's not coming up. You want to just tell me? Councillor Weiss is yes. That carries. Councillor Gallo, did you want to defer this one? Yeah, defer to first committee of the whole in November. Second by Councillor Thompson. Any questions, comments? So I'll call the vote. This is going to be deferred to. Sorry, we're just going to correct it before everyone votes. Here we go. Councillor Gardner, she just did it. She just did it. There we go. We're good. That carries. New business. Councillor Reese? Go ahead.
Yes, I just want to reiterate what I said about 9.3. And we're sorry. Maybe it was 9.3. Let me look at it. Anyway, it was the Wellington Street zoning bylaw amendment. I'll be discussing this with the residents, and I'll be bringing forth a motion in November that may be helpful in a solution for them. So it's all the new business I have.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Gallo, new business.
Through Mr. Mayor to Mr. Rumino, just if you give me an update about the line painting. I know you and I have had several conversations about that on Yonge Street around the business that was in conversation tonight at the podium.
Mr. Romano.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, and I talking to Ms. Camp, that Yonge Street property in front of the cannabis shop back in 2023, we did paint the curb yellow to indicate no parking in front of that driveway. So that was done a couple of years ago. But again, moving forward, if we form a task force, we'll consider other options, and we're also conducting in the midst of our townwide parking study as well.
Councillor.
Thank you. I think I was asking for parking lines. If you had done, I was going to ask you to clarify the things I know that we have done by adding some no parking and the other painted thing to confirm that. So at least the general public does understand we did take steps. But I think I was asking for actual lines that would delineate where someone would park in front. People just psychologically know that I got to park between this line and that line. And you and I had talked about it several occasions. So if maybe you can give me an update, because I kind of assumed that this would be done by now.
Mr. Romano.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, again, if you're referring to the line painting to designate the on-street parking spots along Yonge Street over the past couple of years, yeah, we've done that. Our operations department has done that both north and south of along Yonge Street, both north and south of Wellington.
Councillor.
Have they done that in front of that store? Because I don't recall seeing it there.
Yeah. Councillor, I mean, I'll let Mr. Romano. I think that we've had many discussions about putting those lines there. The unfortunate thing is that I think staff are struggling with the fact that some of the curbs are going to change. And so where those lines would actually go because of the development that's just right beside this business, that because of that change of where the openings might be, that the lines will not match up and we would have to redo them as well. So I think staff are waiting for that curbs and everything to be finished, and then we're going to go ahead with those lines.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. That's all I was trying to get to. So there was some timeline there to understand, because I couldn't certainly remember why. So that's that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. No new business? Thank you. Councillor Thompson, new business? Councillor Gallo, new business? Go ahead.
I do. Just in speaking of lines on roads, Earl Stewart Drive, where it goes east and then it turns northbound right in front of St. Louis. The sidewalks switch from the south side of the road to the actually west side of Earl Stewart. There's a turn there. I'm sure we've all done it. There's curve cuts for pedestrians to go from one side of the street to the other to continue the sidewalks. Is there any way through you, Mr. Mayor, we can get some type of stripes or something on the pavement to indicate a crosswalk where people should be crossing, as well as indicating to the cars in the area that there is something there. It's quite a dangerous corner. Anything we could do to help, I think, would be great.
Yeah. Mr. Gallo, maybe we should sit down with, you should sit down with Mr. Ramuno.
I did
I
already.
agree with you. It is a dangerous.
I did already.
Oh, you did you? Okay, Mr. Ramuno, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yeah, we'll definitely take a look at that and see what we can do. Specifically, I think Councilor Gallo is asking if we can do some sort of cross walk hatching along that stretch of pavement. So we'll have staff take a look and come back. And if it's possible, we'll do it. If not, we can provide an update for council.
Thank you. Is that all? Councilor Kim, any business? No? Public service announcement? Public service announcement? Councilor Gallo, go ahead.
A quick one, and I don't know if I'm going to steal Councillor Gardner's thunder. I love doing that anyway. There is the Jewish family connected Hanukkah bash on December 21st from 4 to 6 at the York Gymnastics Facility on Earl Stewart Drive in the wonderful Ward 5.
Mr. Thompson, PSAs?
Go Jays, go.
Pardon? Councilor Gardner?
Hi, Mr. Mayor. You didn't notice that I had something actually to add to new business.
I'll let you go ahead. Go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, I don't know if it's Ms. Teenkamp or Mr. Ramuno. A resident called and said that when she's walking from Dell Manor north, that there's a couple of areas of the sidewalk that she feels are dangerous. Now, that's a regional road. Is there something that the town can do about that, or do you need to send me a regional contact?
Mr. Ramuno, I believe that's part of the MUP that we're doing, multi-purpose. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm aware of that because of the committee that I'm on,
Yep.
but we don't really know the timing of that. And
Next year.
okay, this lady is getting older by the minute, as are her companions. Could you have a look at that and just see, maybe it just needs a little bit of fill or something that we could do?
Mr. Ramuno, can you get out there and just have staff check it out?
Will do.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Lorianne, PSA? No. Councilor Weiss, no. I just got to this Halloween, join the town of Aurora to make trick or treating accessible for everyone. It's easy to join in on the fun. Just hand out treats from your driveway. Consider non-edible options and refrain from using strobe lights. These are just a few options to help make trick or treating accessible and fun for everyone. And to participate and obtain a free lawn sign, visit aurora.ca/treat accessibly. We want to help make parade magic happen. Applications are now being accepted for floats and working groups to participate in Aurora Santa Under the Stars Parade. Please submit your completed Santa Under the Stars Parade application form by Friday, November 7th. The details are available at aurora.ca/Santa Parade. And the town is looking for vendors with unique, one-of-a-kind and creative products for this year's Aurora Christmas Market. Join us at Aurora Town Square on the weekends of November 28th and December 5th. For application details, visit aurora.ca/Christmas Market. Bylaws. Yes, Councilor Gardner.
Could you clarify about that sign? Is it a sign that says we're in, I don't know.
It says trick or treat accessible. Yeah, it's an orange sign. I think you've seen them. I think we have one upstairs.
So that means that, what does that mean exactly?
It
Maybe
just means that if you put it there, this household provides trick or treating accessibly and as per some of the things. I know Allison, so my wife is going to be at the bottom of the driveway handing out candies to make sure that the people don't need to use stairs or have to get to the front door.
it's a great idea. Thank you.
Bylaws. Someone want to move them? Councillor Weiss, thank you. Councillor Kim, second. Comments, questions on the bylaws? Call a vote. That carries. Confirming bylaws. Someone want to move that? Councillor Thompson. Councillor Gallo. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Motion to adjourn. Councillor Kim, Councillor Thompson, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.